In this series, Process takes you behind the scenes and into the creative mind of artist and musician Stanley Lake, co-founder in 1988 of Quebec's Tour des Arts. In this video, we will witness the process of transforming the vase made in Video A into a pond spitter. And now, heads up with Stanley Lake.
In part C of Heads Up, I would like to formally invite you into my studio and just give you a quick look around. The barn was built in 1840, and when I bought it in 1974, it was pretty well falling down, so we had to jack it up. And then I started putting a studio in. Probably over 10 years, kept expanding the inside of the studio and using more of the barn's interior space. So have a look around, and then we'll start in on the making of a face on a throne form. So here we are. This is part C of our series of making a garden goddess or a pond spitter. As you saw yesterday in the video, I threw this form. It was upside down yesterday, like a vase, and today I kept a narrow base on the form as I threw it, so I can bring the form in without having a lot of weight of clay here. So somewhat of a human form. And what I'll do now is I'll start delineating, and again I want the clay to be somewhat moist. Down here it is firm enough that it'll support the rest of the feature, but I do want this part that I'm going to work on to be somewhat moist, because I am going to go inside the form and push out this area. So I need it to be plastic and flexible and moist, and I'll be pushing in this area. If I need it to get a little more moist, I just spray the inside and spray the outside a bit as I'm working. So I kind of create where I want things to go with this, and the nose is going to come down here, and the mouth will be somewhere in here. I'm just setting this up, and I'll go in. You see that the clay is moist here, and I can push it in, move it around, making the placement of it's like a rough outline of where things are going to go. Push that socket in more. So if you have it too thin, then it'll be a little harder to do this movement. So the clay for this type of work, as I create it, I do make it a lot more thick than I would if I was throwing in a normal vase form or any form. So what I do here now is this is called slip. I think we talked about this. It's just clay and water into a slurry, and it's the glue of what keeps one piece of clay attached to another piece of clay. So I'll just put some slip on these areas where I'm going to put some clay for the eye sockets. And what we do is we score the area where we put slip down, and the piece of clay that we're going to put in that area we will also score and slip. And the scoring, what it does is create these grooves so that they'll hold better one piece to another. So oftentimes it needs surface texture in the surface to help the one piece of clay adhere to another. So here I'm making the preliminary eye socket. Just roll it out. Turn those over a bit. I'll put slip on it. I will score them. Then I'll attach. It's pretty, the stage is the rough part as opposed to the finished part. I'm just getting things in place. and I'll press that piece of clay in place. I can still move these if I want them closer. I can move it this way. Now also I'll push the clay in to that cavity. I'll push it in on the top and start to shape these things a little bit more. And then I'm going to go with this tool. It's really from a package of baking tools. Just go underneath, make a spot for my finger to go under, and then I'm going to go underneath that groove and start making the eye socket. And I also want to use this tool on the inside and bring some clay that's on the inside to this clay over here, because when you're adding pieces, not only the scoring and the slipping, but you want to bring clay from one piece to the other piece and meld it together. So that is what I'm doing here. And now I'm going to make a place for the nose. Again, I like my surfaces where I'm working to be somewhat moist so the clay keeps moist, and I'm just rolling this out, making a coil out of it. And I'm going to taper this a little bit more at this end, push this in over here, get the idea of a nose going. Just see how where it lines up with the form. I want it a little longer. Mouth is here, chin is there, so I think that can handle that. Now I will slip this, and I'll slip this, make some score. And attach it. I want this part eventually to work into the brow there, so I'll flatten that down a bit. Press it in, and then going back to what I was just talking about, I will bring clay from one piece down into this piece. So I'm assuring that they're going to stay attached that way. I make those marks, and then I smooth them off. This side the same. Again, I'm doing just rough work here, and I'll go back and work. Especially I'll work this area here. I'm going to build that up a little later. Now I'm going to do the mouth. And I spray this clay over here just to keep it moist. That's what I'm doing here. And I'm going to just flatten this out. And I like the lips to be tight together. But in this case, since I'm going to have a pipe coming through here that's going to direct the water, because it's going to be, my intent is that it's a water spitter, pond spitter. So I have to make the lips a little more, well, I have to make them open enough to accommodate a pipe, a copper pipe. So here again, I'll slip that area. Score, score, and attach it. I don't need it too close to the nose because I'm gonna be moving clay up to it. Bring that down. Press it in, but not so hard that I distort the form. Then with my favorite cooking tool, bring some of the clay up. I try to make these, they're not stark areas, but they're areas that feed into one another. So this mouth that'll be here feeds into the nose area. Kind of mark the center point of the mouth. Make that initial mark where that thing is going to go. Now make a mark for the lower lip. Bring these lines out a little bit. Bring this down a bit. Kind of accent the upper limits. Of the upper lip. And now and also bring, I'm pushing in there. There you go. So here I will spend a little more time on the mouth. I'm a person, I think most people, when they're talking to people, to other people, look at their eyes. And I have a tendency to look at people's mouths, and they have a lot of expression for me there. Other people think there's all this expression coming from the eyes. But my focus is on people's mouths when I'm communicating with them. So I start to spend more time now on the mouth. So push that up a bit. And I'll bring this down a bit. Again, I have to get a pipe to go through here. Like a lot of movements. I like when I go to the dentist, you know, he's moving these tools, similar tools, well, not plastic, but similar movements of the hand. I always tell him, you know, you would really enjoy working with clay. But I think he does so much of this that he's fed up with this type of manipulation. But the relationship of what's going on here with working in the mouth and what the dentist does always amuses me. I have more fun when the lips are tight together, and so this is for me a bit of a challenge, keeping that mouth area open and still having it have some expression. And certainly when we're watching TV or a movie, my wife and I were often, she's a great sculptor too, and we're saying, oh, look at that mouth, or oh, look at that nose. I think we pay as much attention to the people's structure of their face as we do to the content of the movie. So I'm going to put a hole through this, and now I'll start to open that hole up a bit. I think the pipe is a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I have another, I got the drill bit here that I used to make sure it's the right size. And I'll come back and work this once I see where the chin is. So I don't have a lot of pre-planning of what goes on here. I'm just reacting. keep remembering to sit up straight. So it's interesting on mouth or the whole face. I mean, it dictates a lot. I think I've mentioned this in another video, that it kind of informs the person that's looking at it a bit about the personality of the person you're looking at. Meaning, if you get people that frown a lot in their lives, their mouths tend to go down here. If they smile a lot, you know, you're going to bring up different lines are going to, and these lines, you know, are kind of imprinted on the face after many years of that's the way you show yourself in the public, smiley or kind of sad and frowning. And if you're in the sun, some lines, you know, squinting your head will bring wrinkles up there, or laughing, these laughing lines. It's fun to actually look in the mirror and make different expressions and see, as you're an older person, to see why you have lines in a certain way. You know, like it's a good exercise to see, look at your face. Oh, when I smile, all those lines are created like that. When I frown, or when I look in the sun, when I laugh. So I'll come back to this. I like to extend this line. Kind of off-centered here. Okay, now I'm going to add a chin to this. And work the clay around a bit. Kind of a rectangular form. And I'll get it a little thinner at the top because I want it to flow into this area, and as wide as the mouth is. Good consistency. Again, I spray the clay. So I'm going to add this here and work it in. So again, I slip, I score it, and I'll attach it. You can trap some air in here, and if it doesn't have a way to get out, it will explode. So I'll often just run a needle tool through that. So there's an opening on the inside that lets air get out. Because when you're firing a piece, as the air expands, if there's air trapped there, it'll blow a piece up or blow a part of that piece up. So ideally there is no air in here where I've attached it, and if there is, I'm going to provide an outlet for it. So bring that down. And now I'm going to work this in a bit. My favorite decorating tool. I just got this last fall, and it's become my workhorse here. Make sure this is getting attached underneath here, and also that provides some shape and definition to the piece, to the chin. And even chins, I mean, pretty interesting one person to another. From one person to another, it's just the different lines that some people have. Some are chins. I just saw someone like yesterday with a line going all the way down here from his chin, really delineating that chin on his face. And this is what I meant about an egress for possible air that's in there. And then I'll just cover that up. I can use a little bit more clay here. And I don't always have to use slip. I mean, this clay is somewhat moist, and I'm working it well enough, so it's going to be well enough attached to what I'm applying it to. I don't have to worry about that too much. So now let's work on the nose. Bring that, give it a little more definition, a little more volume. So I will slip the area where I'm going to work. Prepare a piece of clay for that. Put that there. Work that up. I mean, it's fun because you can keep changing that image of. You can add a little piece, you could add a big piece, you can make a small nose, and that's going to certainly affect how, or a large nose. And you'll say, oh, that's a nose just like Uncle Bob's. Or that's a nose like Aunt Mary. You see, I like this little dip here a lot. I like to blunt off that end. Really excess. I have to create some nostrils here. Okay, I'm going to, with my little finger, make some nostrils here. Use my tool to make the holes for the nostril. There you go. Try to bring this over a little bit more. I don't think I've ever made the mouth like this, but make sure there's enough room. If it gets too wet, too moist up here, it's kind of hard to get the definition, so you have to let it dry a bit. All right. So now we'll go back to the eyes. Get these furrows going a little bit. A little stronger, the line. Make that line really there. Get that flow of one part to another part. I often get people asking me, how long does it take you to make a head? And I say, oh, about 50 years. And they're like, huh? I say, well, you know, all the time that it takes to learn your craft. That's how long it takes to make something. All that experience. So now I'm going to put some eyeballs in here. Just clean up my surface. Keep it moist. Do that. Cut it in half. Again, back to the somewhat of an almond. And I'll put some slip in here. I refrained from saying put some slip in here with my favorite tool, but I just did. This is my favorite tool. I think I mentioned this in my other video. A set of 3. I haven't even used these yet. I'm so fixated on this, but this will be a nice one for some design. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to put those in there. So I did not score these, but I'm going to have this eyelid. I press them in a bit. This eyelid is going to come over it, so the eyeball that I put in there really can't escape. But you could score, slip and score them. So there I have those, the eyeballs, and I think I mentioned this also in another video that I tend to do the eyes, the last things, the eyeballs, to want to see the whole piece, and as I've said also that certain cultures that'll be the last thing that they do. Indonesian cultures, I think, in mask making will do the eyes as the very last thing that gives it life. So I'm going to push this down here, create this cavity. And the clay is still moist. A little more. You're going into this deepness of the eye sockets. Draws you in. Can draw you in. Okay, now I'll come back to this, and I'll come back to the area up here. But now what I'm going to do is, which is a lot of fun for me, is to push out from the inside.
So we'll let Stanley take a break, but he'll be back in Heads Up Transformation, Episode 2, Giving Life to It. and we hope you enjoyed this presentation of process. If so, please hit the like button, and better still, subscribe. Please check out the links below in the description for other videos from the team at Cooking Minds Production, Quebec. And as always, thank you.